No one searched for the ancient relic because they believed it was lost forever. But on a quiet morning, it chose the one person who never wanted to be found. Ethan Walker had always believed his life was meant to remain simple. At 24 years old, he lived in the peaceful countryside of the Western Valley, carrying letters and supplies between small villages scattered across the kingdom. He was not a warrior. He was not a noble. He had no desire for fame, power, or recognition. Ethan only wanted a peaceful life where he could help others in small ways. Every morning, he traveled the familiar roads with his leather bag over his shoulder, greeting farmers, merchants, and villagers who knew him as the kind young messenger who never refused to help. But everything changed on the day he discovered something that had been hidden for centuries. The journey began like any other. Ethan was delivering a package near the edge of an ancient forest when he noticed a strange light beneath the roots of an old tree. Curiosity pulled him closer, and there, hidden beneath layers of earth and time, he found a small forgotten relic unlike anything he had ever seen. It was not large or impressive. It did not look like something that belonged in a royal treasury. Yet the moment Ethan touched it, he felt a strange warmth, as if the object had been waiting for him. He did not know that kings and scholars had searched for this relic for generations. He did not know that legends spoke of a power connected to the future of the entire kingdom. All he knew was that the simple object felt strangely familiar, like a memory from a life he had never lived. That evening, when Ethan returned home, he noticed something unusual. The relic had changed. A symbol that had been invisible before now appeared across its surface, glowing softly in the dim light. Ethan stared at it with confusion. Why him? Why would something so ancient choose someone who had spent his entire life avoiding attention? Before he could find an answer, a stranger arrived at his small cottage. The man wore a dark traveling cloak and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had seen many battles and many kingdoms. His name was Adrian Cross, a former Royal Guardian known throughout the land. Adrian looked at the relic and immediately understood what Ethan had discovered. For years, he had searched for signs that the ancient legend was true, but he never expected the chosen person to be someone like Ethan. "You have no idea what you are carrying," Adrian said quietly. Ethan looked at the relic in his hands and felt the weight of a destiny he never asked for. Adrian explained that the relic had not chosen the strongest warrior or the most powerful ruler. It had chosen someone with a heart that could resist the temptation of power. Ethan wanted to believe there was a mistake. He wanted to return to his ordinary life. But deep inside, he knew that finding the relic was not an accident. As the stars filled the night sky above the valley, Ethan stood at the beginning of a journey that would change everything he knew. The simple messenger who once believed he was invisible had become the person the world had been waiting for. And far beyond the quiet fields, a forgotten darkness began to notice that the ancient relic had awakened once again. Ethan Walker had spent his entire life believing that ordinary people were meant to stay away from extraordinary things. Yet as he looked at the ancient relic resting in his hands, he began to understand that some choices were never truly his to make. The morning after discovering the mysterious object, Ethan woke up hoping everything had been a strange dream. He wanted to return to delivering letters, greeting familiar faces, and living the quiet life he had always known. But the relic remained beside him, carrying the same mysterious symbol that appeared the night before. It was a reminder that something had changed forever. Adrian Cross stayed nearby, watching carefully, but never forcing Ethan to accept a destiny he did not understand. The former Royal Guardian knew that fear was natural. He had once stood where Ethan was standing now, facing a future filled with questions and uncertainty. Adrian explained that the relic had appeared only a few times throughout history, always during moments when the kingdom faced great change. Legends claimed it did not belong to kings or warriors. It belonged to someone who could make the right choice when power was offered. Ethan struggled to understand why such a responsibility would fall on him. He was just a messenger who knew the roads between villages better than he knew the halls of castles. He had never trained with a sword. He had never studied ancient magic. He had never dreamed of becoming part of a legend. Maybe the relic made a mistake, Ethan said quietly. Adrian looked at him and shook his head. The greatest choices are rarely given to the people who expect them. Those words stayed with Ethan as they traveled beyond the familiar fields of his home. Adrian decided they needed to leave before others discovered the relic's return. The journey would take them toward forgotten lands where ancient records might reveal why the relic had chosen Ethan. Along the road, Ethan began to notice small changes within himself. The relic did not make him feel powerful. Instead, it reminded him of the people he had met during his simple life. The villagers who depended on each other, the families who shared what little they had, the strangers who showed kindness without expecting anything in return. Ethan realized that perhaps those moments had prepared him for something greater all along. Adrian watched as the young messenger slowly changed. At first, he had seen Ethan as someone who needed protection. But with every mile they traveled, Adrian began to see something different. Ethan possessed a quality that many powerful people had lost. He listened before judging. He cared before acting. He valued people more than victory. As they reached the edge of the forgotten lands, they discovered an ancient stone path covered by years of silence. At the end of that path stood ruins from a forgotten era, waiting to reveal secrets hidden for generations. Ethan looked ahead, uncertain but determined. He still did not know why the relic chose him. He still feared what the journey would bring. But for the first time, he accepted that running away would not return him to the life he once knew. Behind them was the world Ethan understood. Ahead was a mystery, waiting to be uncovered. And as the relic began to glow beneath the fading sunlight, both Ethan and Adrian realized that their journey had only just begun. The forgotten ruins stood beneath the quiet sky, holding the secrets of a world that had been nearly erased from memory. Ethan Walker stepped carefully along the ancient stone path, feeling the weight of the relic in his hands. For the first time since leaving his village, he understood that this journey was not simply about discovering the truth behind the mysterious object. It was about discovering who he truly was. Adrian Cross walked beside him, carrying the knowledge of countless legends, but revealing only what Ethan was ready to understand. The former Royal Guardian had spent years searching for answers about the relic, but he had never expected the person connected to its return to be someone so ordinary. As they explored the ruins, they discovered walls covered with ancient symbols and stories carved by people who lived long before the current kingdom existed. The writings describe a relic that did not choose rulers based on strength or status. It searched for someone whose heart remained steady when faced with difficult choices. Ethan studied the words carefully, trying to understand why such a responsibility belonged to him. "I still do not understand," Ethan admitted. "There are thousands of people who are stronger and more prepared than I am." Adrian looked at the ancient markings and then back at Ethan. Strength is not always measured by what someone can do. Sometimes it is measured by what they refuse to become. Those words made Ethan think about his own life. He remembered every person he had helped along the roads between villages. He remembered moments when he chose patience instead of anger and kindness instead of judgment. He had never considered those choices important before, but now he wondered if they were the reason the relic had found him. Deeper inside the ruins, they discovered a hidden chamber containing old records about the ancient guardians who protected the relic throughout history. The documents revealed that every chosen person faced the same challenge. The relic could reveal incredible possibilities, but the person carrying it had to decide what kind of future they wanted to create. Ethan realized that the relic was not a gift without responsibility. It was a test of character. Meanwhile, Adrian found a record that connected to his own forgotten past. Years earlier, he had been part of a mission to find the relic, but the search ended without success. He had believed that failure meant he was no longer worthy of protecting anything important. Seeing Ethan stand before the ancient records made him question that belief. Perhaps his journey had not been about finding the relic. Perhaps it had been about finding the person who could carry its meaning. As evening arrived, Ethan and Adrian rested near the ruins, looking over the distant lands they would soon travel through. The path ahead remained uncertain, but something between them had changed. They were no longer simply a messenger and a guardian. They were two people connected by a purpose neither of them fully understood yet. Ethan looked at the glowing relic and felt less afraid than before. He still did not have all the answers, but he finally understood one important truth. A person did not become worthy because they were chosen. They became worthy because of the choices they made after being chosen. And somewhere beyond the forgotten lands, a hidden force realized that the ancient relic had found exactly the person it had been waiting for. The road beyond the forgotten ruins led Ethan Walker and Adrian Cross into a part of the kingdom that few people had seen for many years. The forests grew taller, the paths became quieter, and the signs of ancient civilizations appeared everywhere around them. Yet despite the mystery surrounding their journey, Ethan began to feel different. He was no longer only searching for answers about the relic. He was learning to trust himself. Adrian noticed the change as well. The young messenger who once doubted every decision was slowly becoming someone who could face uncertainty without turning away. Their journey brought them to an abandoned city hidden between mountains, a place that had once been a center of knowledge and wisdom. According to the ancient records, the city held the final clues about the origin of the relic. As they walked through the empty streets, Ethan imagined the people who had lived there long ago. He wondered what happened to them and why their stories had disappeared from history. Inside the oldest building in the city, they discovered a large chamber filled with preserved writings and forgotten maps. The documents revealed that the relic was never created to give one person unlimited power. Instead, it was designed to guide someone who could unite people during times of uncertainty. Ethan looked at Adrian with surprise. He had expected to find a weapon or a secret that could defeat enemies. Instead, he found a lesson about responsibility. The relic was not asking him to become someone else. It was asking him to become the best version of himself. As they continued reading, Adrian discovered another part of the records that connected to his own past. The ancient guardians had written about a protector who would eventually meet the chosen one. The protector was not chosen because they had never made mistakes. They were chosen because they understood the importance of correcting them. Adrian quietly closed the book. For years, he had believed that his past mistakes defined him. He believed he had lost the right to protect others because of what happened long ago. But standing beside Ethan, he began to see his journey differently. Maybe his past was not something that trapped him. Maybe it was something that prepared him. That evening, they sat near the entrance of the ancient city, watching the stars appear above the mountains. Ethan asked Adrian why he continued helping him when the journey was becoming more complicated. Adrian looked toward the distant horizon before answering. Because I've spent years searching for a reason to believe again. I think I finally found one. Ethan smiled softly. For the first time, he understood that they were not walking this path alone. They were helping each other become stronger in ways neither of them expected. But far away from the ancient city, a hidden presence began to move. The return of the relic had not gone unnoticed. Those who had waited in the shadows for its appearance now knew that the chosen one had been found. Ethan and Adrian continued forward, unaware that their greatest challenge was approaching. Yet neither of them was the same person who had started the journey. The messenger had discovered courage. The guardian had discovered hope. And together, they moved closer to the truth that would change the fate of the entire kingdom. The journey beyond the ancient city led Ethan Walker and Adrian Cross toward lands that had remained hidden from the rest of the kingdom for generations. The path was no longer familiar, and every step brought them closer to understanding the true purpose of the relic. Ethan carried the ancient object carefully, no longer seeing it as a burden, but as a responsibility he had chosen to accept. Yet he still wondered if he was truly prepared for what awaited them. Adrian continued guiding him, but their relationship had changed. At the beginning of their journey, Adrian saw Ethan as someone who needed protection. Now, he saw him as someone capable of making decisions that could shape the future. Their next destination was an old sanctuary built by the first guardians of the relic. According to the ancient records, The sanctuary contained the final knowledge needed to understand the relic's true nature. When they arrived, they found a peaceful place surrounded by towering cliffs and ancient trees. Unlike the forgotten city, the sanctuary still carried a sense of warmth, as if generations of guardians had protected its purpose through time. Inside the sanctuary, Ethan discovered a room filled with memories of those who had carried the relic before him. Paintings and writings showed that every chosen person had faced the same doubts he felt. They were not perfect heroes. They were ordinary people who made difficult choices when the world needed them most. Ethan realized that the relic had never searched for someone without fear. It had searched for someone who could continue forward despite fear. As they studied the records, Adrian found a hidden message written by a former guardian. The message spoke about a moment when the chosen one would face a choice between personal happiness and the greater good of others. Adrian became quiet as he read those words because he understood the meaning behind them. The greatest challenge was not discovering the relic's power. The greatest challenge was deciding how to use it. Ethan looked at the relic and thought about the simple life he left behind. He missed his village. He missed the familiar roads and the people who knew him. A part of him wondered if he could return and forget this journey ever happened. But he also remembered the reason he continued. There were people across the kingdom who needed hope, just as he once needed someone to believe in him. Adrian noticed Ethan's silence and understood the choice forming inside him. "You do not have to become someone else to carry this responsibility," Adrian said. "You only have to remember who you already are." Those words gave Ethan the confidence he needed. For the first time, he stopped searching for proof that he was worthy. He began believing that his actions would define him. Outside the sanctuary, the wind carried distant sounds from the lands beyond the mountains. The hidden forces searching for the relic were getting closer, but Ethan and Adrian were no longer the same people who had left the valley. The messenger who once avoided attention had discovered his courage. The guardian who once carried regret had found a reason to hope again. Together, they stood at the entrance of the sanctuary, knowing that the journey ahead would test everything they had learned. The relic glowed softly in Ethan's hands, reminding them that destiny was not something given to a person. It was something created through every choice they made. The journey continued beyond the ancient sanctuary, leading Ethan Walker and Adrian Cross toward the heart of the Forgotten Lands. The relic remained quiet in Ethan's hands, but its presence reminded them that something important was waiting ahead. For the first time since leaving his village, Ethan no longer felt like someone who had been pulled into a story that belonged to others. He understood that his choices mattered, and every step forward was becoming part of his own story. Adrian noticed the change. The young messenger who once questioned why the relic chose him now walked with confidence and purpose. But even as Ethan grew stronger inside, he still carried doubts about what would happen when the true test arrived. Their path eventually brought them to a hidden valley surrounded by ancient mountains. According to the sanctuary records, this place was where the first guardians learned how to understand the relic. It was not a place built for power or control. It was a place created to teach wisdom and responsibility. As they explored the valley, Ethan discovered carvings that showed the history of the relic and the people who protected it. The images revealed that the greatest challenges faced by previous chosen ones were not always found outside themselves. Many struggled with fear, pride, and the desire to choose the easier path. Ethan realized that the relic was not measuring his strength. It was revealing his heart. Meanwhile, Adrian began confronting memories from his own past. He remembered the years when he believed one mistake had defined his entire life. He had spent so long trying to prove that he was still worthy that he forgot he had already helped many people along the way. Watching Ethan grow reminded him that redemption was not about erasing the past. It was about choosing what to do next. As they reached the center of the valley, they discovered an ancient chamber containing the final message left by the first guardian. The message was simple but powerful. It explained that the relic was never meant to belong to one person forever. It was meant to inspire people to protect each other. Ethan read the words carefully and finally understood why the relic had chosen him. It did not choose him because he was the strongest. It chose him because he understood the value of every person he met. That evening, Ethan and Adrian sat beneath the stars, reflecting on everything they had learned. Ethan admitted that he still missed his old life and the peaceful roads of his village. Adrian smiled because he understood those feelings. A person did not have to abandon who they were to become something greater. They simply had to carry their best qualities into a new purpose. The next morning, they prepared to leave the valley and continue toward the kingdom's center, where the answers they sought were waiting. But before they departed, Ethan looked back at the ancient sanctuary and felt grateful for the journey that had changed him. He was no longer just a messenger carrying letters between villages. He was someone who had discovered courage, responsibility, and the importance of hope. Adrian walked beside him, no longer a guardian searching for a forgotten purpose, but a companion who had found a new reason to continue. Together, they moved forward toward the unknown, unaware that the greatest challenge of their journey would soon reveal the true meaning of the relic's power. The road toward the center of the kingdom became more uncertain with every passing day, but Ethan Walker no longer walked with the same hesitation he carried at the beginning of his journey. The ancient relic remained a reminder of the responsibility placed in his hands, yet was no longer something he feared. He had learned that destiny was not about becoming someone powerful. It was about choosing to do what was right when the choice was difficult. Adrian Cross noticed how much Ethan had changed. The young messenger who once believed he was just an ordinary person had become someone who inspired trust wherever they traveled. Along the way, they met villagers who had lost hope because of the rumors spreading across the lands. Stories of the awakened relic had reached distant corners of the kingdom, and many people wondered what its return would mean for their future. Ethan listened to their concerns instead of simply passing through. He realized that the journey was not only about protecting the relic. It was about understanding the people who would be affected by its power. When they finally reached the outer regions of the kingdom's capital, they discovered a city filled with uncertainty. The streets were quieter than they should have been, and many citizens looked toward the palace with worry. Ethan and Adrian learned that old conflicts had returned between different groups who feared what the relic represented. Some believed it would bring hope. Others believed any ancient power would eventually create division. Adrian understood their fear because he had once thought the same way. He remembered the years when he believed power was the only answer to protecting what mattered. But his journey with Ethan had shown him something different. True protection came from trust, understanding, and the willingness to see beyond fear. Inside the city archives, Ethan and Adrian searched for the final records connected to the relic. They discovered a hidden message written by the last guardian who carried it before it disappeared. The message explained that the relic's greatest purpose was not to choose a ruler. It was to reveal the character of the person who carried it. Ethan read the words slowly, realizing that the relic had never been a reward. It had been a responsibility. That evening, Ethan stood on a balcony overlooking the city and watched thousands of people moving below. He thought about the quiet village where his journey began and the simple life he once wanted to protect. He realized that he was not leaving that life behind. He was carrying everything he learned from it with him. Adrian joined him and said that many people spend their lives searching for something that proves they matter. But Ethan had discovered something more important. He had learned that a person creates their own meaning through every choice they make. Before they could continue their search, they received news that the hidden force following the relic had finally revealed its presence. The moment they had prepared for was approaching. But Ethan no longer felt like the frightened messenger who first found the ancient object. He stood beside Adrian with confidence, knowing that whatever came next would be faced with courage and compassion. The relic glowed softly in his hand, not as a symbol of power, but as a reminder of the path that brought him there. And as the city lights filled the night, Ethan understood that the greatest challenge was not protecting the relic from others. It was proving that hope could remain strong even when the world was uncertain. The city that once stood as the heart of the kingdom felt different when Ethan Walker and Adrian Cross arrived. The streets were filled with questions, uncertainty, and whispers about the ancient relic that had returned after generations of silence. Ethan could feel the weight of every person watching him, but he no longer wanted to hide from attention. He understood that being chosen did not mean standing above others. It meant standing with them. Adrian guided Ethan through the old palace districts, where they searched for the final answers hidden within the kingdom's forgotten history. They discovered a chamber beneath the royal archives containing records that had been sealed for many years. Inside were the stories of previous guardians and the choices they made when the relic appeared in their time. Ethan carefully studied each page, noticing a pattern. Every chosen person faced a moment when they had to decide whether to use the relic for personal gain or for the benefit of everyone around them. The relic had always revealed the true nature of the person carrying it. It did not create heroes. It revealed them. As Ethan continued reading, he found a message written by the final guardian who protected the relic before it disappeared. The words explained that the greatest danger was not losing the relic. The greatest danger was forgetting why it existed in the first place. Ethan looked at Adrian and realized the guardian had been carrying the same lesson for years. Adrian had spent so long focusing on his past mistakes that he forgot the many lives he had helped along the way. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that his story was not defined by one difficult chapter. Meanwhile, the people of the kingdom gathered outside the palace, waiting for answers. Many expected a powerful figure to appear and solve every problem. But Ethan knew that was never the purpose of the relic. A single person could not create a better future alone. The future depended on everyone choosing hope over fear. Ethan stepped before the people and spoke honestly about his journey. He did not present himself as a perfect hero. He admitted that he was still learning and that he had once been afraid of everything that was happening. But he also explained that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was choosing to continue despite it. The people listened, and slowly, the uncertainty around the relic began to change. They no longer saw it as a symbol of power. They began to see it as a symbol of responsibility and unity. Adrian watched from nearby, feeling a sense of peace he had not known for many years. The young messenger who once believed he was ordinary had reminded an entire kingdom of something important. True strength was not found in control. It was found in compassion, understanding, and the willingness to protect what mattered. As night covered the city, Ethan and Adrian returned to the archives to prepare for the final step of their journey. They knew that the hidden force searching for the relic was still waiting beyond the kingdom's borders. The greatest test was approaching, but they were ready. Ethan had found his purpose. Adrian had found redemption. And together, they carried the relic forward, knowing that the final choice would determine not only their future, but the future of everyone who believed in hope. The morning light covered the kingdom as Ethan Walker and Adrian Cross prepared for the final part of their journey. After everything they had discovered, they understood that the ancient relic was never simply an object of power. It was a reminder that every person had the ability to create change through their choices. Ethan stood quietly in the royal courtyard, holding the relic and remembering the small village where his journey began. He remembered the peaceful roads, the familiar faces, and the simple life he once believed was the only future waiting for him. Now he realized that those moments had shaped him into the person who could carry this responsibility. Adrian stood beside him, no longer carrying the same regrets that followed him for years. The former Royal Guardian had learned that a person was not defined by the moments when they failed, but by the moments when they chose to continue. Together, they traveled beyond the capital toward the ancient place where the relic's journey had first begun. According to the final records, the relic had to return to its original sanctuary, not because it was dangerous, but because its purpose had been fulfilled. Along the way, Ethan reflected on everything he had learned. He was no longer searching for proof that he was worthy. He understood that worth came from compassion, courage, and the willingness to help others even when there was nothing to gain. When they reached the ancient sanctuary, the relic began to shine brighter than ever before. Ethan placed it at the center of the chamber where generations of guardians had protected its secret. For a moment, He wondered if this meant the end of his journey. But instead of disappearing completely, the relic revealed one final message. The words explained that true legends were not created by powerful objects or extraordinary abilities. They were created by ordinary people who chose kindness when the world needed it most. Ethan looked at Adrian and smiled, realizing that the greatest treasure he found was not the relic itself. It was the friendship, trust, and understanding they built along the way. Adrian looked back toward the path they traveled and felt a sense of peace. The journey had changed him just as much as it changed Ethan. He no longer saw himself as a guardian searching for a lost purpose. He saw himself as someone who had helped another person discover theirs. When they returned to the kingdom, the people welcomed them not as rulers or legends, but as reminders of what courage truly meant. Ethan returned to the villages he once traveled through, but he was no longer just a messenger carrying letters. He became someone who carried stories of hope from one place to another. Adrian continued protecting the kingdom, but now with a renewed understanding of what protection truly meant. Years later, people would tell stories about the young messenger who discovered an ancient relic and the guardian who helped him find his path. But the greatest lesson was never about the relic. It was about the choices made by two people who believed that even the smallest act of kindness could change the future. And beneath the quiet skies of the kingdom, their journey remained a reminder that destiny was not something written for us. It was something we created with every choice we made.